Hello everyone, welcome to this installation video about how to install PtyRAD on your local machine. So first of all, you might be already familiar with this is the GitHub repo of PtyRAD. You can find the latest README instruction, a couple quick links here, and some quick start steps about how to install PtyRAD here. And just want to mention that because I can only put certain amount of information in the README file, so for a more detailed installation guide, I highly recommend to click into this installation guide, and you'll be seeing the documentation website that actually has a very handy table of what are the supported hardware and software platform about PtyRAD. And as you may know, PtyRAD uses PyTorch as a computation backend, which is one of the largest and most popular machine learning framework that utilize GPU for high performance tasks. And that's kind of why PyTorch actually has a very big user community, and it has a very wide spread support on different type of software platform, including Windows, Mac, and Linux. And of course, it can actually support both CPU, NVIDIA GPU, even on AMD GPU and Apple GPU. So in this video, I'm going to walk you a couple basic steps about how to check your machine, hardware, also how to install PtyRAD via either conda or pip, and just go through a couple details. So hopefully this one will be quick but useful. So the very first thing is in order to install PtyRAD, you want to make sure that your machine practically should have a GPU. Even though PyTorch or PtyRAD can actually work on just a CPU machine for whatever platform you're using, it's strongly recommending you to get a GPU. So the very first thing is to check whether your machine can detect a GPU. And now I'm just using the NVIDIA GPU for example. So from here, I'm gonna just type in terminal, which is gonna open a terminal of my machine. And suppose you have a NVIDIA GPU, you can actually type in nvidia-smi and enter. This is going to show you what are the GPU that's available to your machine, and you can actually see a couple information here, including the name of the GPU. In this case, for my workstation, I have a Quadro P5000. This is roughly a 2016, 2018, pretty old, but still useful. And there are a couple of numbers I want you to pay attention to. One is the driver version. This one is very important because this limits the maximal supported CUDA version of your specific GPU. And you can see that even though my Quadro P5000 is actually quite old, it's coming from 2016, 2018, but by installing a latest driver, you can actually support up to the latest CUDA version as well, up to 12.8. So this could potentially make things a little bit harder or difficult because sometimes people will have very new GPU on their, for example, HPC or cluster, but the driver version may be a little bit outdated, which if you have an older version of driver and you don't feel like updating it, this will fundamentally limit the newest version of CUDA that your GPU will support, and also this will limit the compatibility with your PyTorch and PtyRAD. So I highly recommend you, if you have a compatible GPU, NVIDIA GPU in your computer, make sure to update to the latest driver version if possible. If it's on a shared machine or it's like managed by your HPC facility, make sure to talk with the administrator and see if it's possible to get a later version of your driver, because the support on CUDA 11 is it's slightly getting deprecated. So if possible, I will recommend people to slowly move towards a newer version of your NVIDIA driver so that you can get latest support on the CUDA 12. Alrighty, so the very first step is, of course, if you don't have a physical GPU on your machine or somehow you don't have a compatible driver, typing in nvidia-smi is not going to show you anything. It's going to give you an error. You can still use PyTorch if you feel like using the CPU version. But yes, the very first thing I would recommend is to type in this command in your terminal and see if you have a valid GPU and whether your CUDA version is at least 11-ish or 12. And this is just a maximal supported CUDA version on your machine. You can actually install PyTorch with a lower CUDA version as well. Let's get a little bit more too much into detail, so I'm just gonna skip it here. But if people are interested, you can comment in the video, and I will probably make another video to get a little bit more closer about what are these driver version and what are the CUDA version and what are things behind it. Alrighty, so now we have checked the machine support that yes, I do have actually 2 GPU on my Windows machine, and now we can get into how to install PtyRAD. And before install anything, just want to mention PtyRAD is built on Python, which is entirely free. So you don't need to pay like a MATLAB license to use this high performance typography code. And if you ever work with Python, one of the most important thing is you want to make sure that each of your Python projects are running in isolated Python environment, because Python is built on top of a lot of community effort. Like all these packages are freely available, but sometimes they have some version conflict or dependencies. So you want to make sure you have a clean environment for each of your Python project. And I will highly recommend that for PtyRAD, you want to create your own Python environment. In this case, most people will recommend you to install these environment management software, for example, Conda. And here, I would strongly recommend you to get your Conda distribution through Conda Forge. It has support on Mac, Linux, and Windows for sure. And for Windows, it's just gonna be a very simple exe installation. For Mac and Linux, they will actually provide you a shell script so you can run and install the miniforge distribution of Conda in your machine. And once you install miniforge, you can actually just type in miniforge. It should actually give you a miniforge prompt, and you can see that right now I already installed miniforge, and you can see that I'm in my base environment. And if you just try to do conda here and enter, you're gonna see a lot of conda command that's available to you. And for people who install miniforge on your Windows computer, and you actually try to do any conda command in another terminal, for example PowerShell, you'll see that, first of all, PowerShell doesn't really show you this base environment in front of your username. And if you actually do conda, it's gonna throw you an error. This is totally normal because conda is a system-wide software. So in order to access conda through different shell, which you can think of them as a entry point, you actually need to run one of the command called conda init, which is specified here. This will let you to access conda through through most of the shell available in your machine. So right now I'm just gonna do conda init. Okay. So you can see that this actually prints out quite a lot of information and show you that now in my computer, the PowerShell has already been modified in terms of it's just registering the path to conda, so that next time when you open PowerShell, so I'm just going to close PowerShell, I'm going to open it again. Next time when you open PowerShell, you can see that it already shows we are in the base conda environment, and we will be able to call conda here. Same thing applies to if you are familiar with, for example, command prompt. So let me see. Let's just do conda init again. Okay, it doesn't seem to show command prompt. So this one may not work. Let's see. Oh, it actually shows conda. Yep. So for command prompt, seems like for this case, even though it can recognize conda, it doesn't really show the environment name here. So just for simplicity, I'm just gonna stick with miniforge prompt. Okay, cool. So back to our plan, we want to create a independent, isolated Python environment just for PtyRAD. So if we go back to the PtyRAD installation guide in the repo, you can see that I'm suggesting people to use conda to create a environment called PtyRAD using Python 3.12. So I'm just copy and paste this command. I'm gonna press enter. So it says I already have a folder created. That's okay. Just gonna override it. So conda is, even for now, it's still recommended to use for your isolated Python environment because it also handles these system-wide dependencies. Some people might still be using virtual env like VM for a virtual environment. But for something complicated like PyTorch that you need to manage your queue runtime, it's still recommended to use conda to create your Python environment. And you can see that because we're just creating an empty Python environment, this is actually quite fast. Okay, so now it's solved the environment with very few dependency. Let's just do install. These commands are compatible, or they're pretty much the same across different platforms, no matter whether you are using Windows, Mac, or Linux. These commands should work on all type of available machines. Okay, cool. Now we have successfully created a PtyRAD environment. We can actually check whether we have this environment created. You can do conda env list. This is going to show the available conda environment in your machine. And you can see that, voila, we do have this PtyRAD environment being created. So let's just now activate this conda environment. So conda activate PtyRAD. You can see that this is actually the same command shown here. So once we type in this command, this is gonna activate our conda into this specific Python environment. So whatever you execute or install or remove is only gonna be contained within this environment. So now we're in this conda environment called PtyRAD here. We can simply install PtyRAD using pip. So just do pip install PtyRAD. So while it's still installing, just want to mention that PtyRAD is actually available on both pip and conda for channel that you can either install using pip install or you can install using conda install. Because there are some change of scope from the PyTorch team. Right now, it's actually recommended to install PtyRAD and PyTorch using this pip channel. But if you look into the documentation website, it actually shows you if you still prefer to install via conda, you can just switch to this tab and it will show you a couple more information if you just click into these tabs. But like I said, right now I think the recommended approach is to install PyTorch using pip, so I'm just gonna stick with it. And another thing about installing PtyRAD through pip is because pip is heavily relying on PyTorch, which is fairly big package. It takes around 800 megabytes to like a gigabyte or so. And if your pip doesn't cache these packages, it may take a few minutes to install the whole thing. And as you can see, it's currently slowly progressing in terms of installation. It may take a couple minutes. Okay, so now the installation has been finished. And now we should be able to just check whether PtyRAD has been installed successfully. As you can see in the GitHub README, it says you can actually check whether your install has been succeeded by typing in PtyRAD check GPU. So that's what I'm gonna do. Just make sure when you're typing this command, you have already activated the correct environment that you install PtyRAD with. So let's just do PtyRAD check GPU. It's gonna take a couple seconds because it's actually gonna import PtyRAD it's actually gonna import PyTorch to check the GPU compatibility. And you can see that it actually prints out a pretty nice warning saying, oh, there's no GPU backend built into this PyTorch install. That means when pip trying to install PyTorch, it actually pulled the incorrect version. This is fairly common recently on Windows, and this behavior actually changes from different software platform. So that's kind of why if you actually check the install documentation, it says the second line you actually want to do is to overwrite the PyTorch version by explicitly downloading PyTorch via this specific link using a force-reinstall flag. So you will be able to override the CPU version of PyTorch and replace it with the GPU version of PyTorch. And just a small note here, if you do have a newer version of CUDA available or compatible with your GPU, you can actually change this into a newer version, like for example 12.8, you will be able to do /cu128. So now I'm just gonna copy this line and reinstall PyTorch. So it's very straightforward. You just copy, paste it. So what it does is just gonna directly pull the PyTorch GPU version from the PyTorch website, and it's gonna do the installation. Okay, so finally the reinstallation of PyTorch has been finished, and now we can actually type in the previous check GPU command again, and let's just see. And this is just gonna take a couple seconds. Oh, you can see that this time we do have the correct PyTorch version being installed. You can see that we have CUDA detected, we have detected the 2 GPUs supported. And if you actually just want a little bit more information, you can try this command called PtyRAD print system info. This is actually going to print the full information of your machine, your hardware, and the installed package information. You can see that right now the packages information, especially PyTorch, you can see that we have 2.7.1 plus this CUDA runtime 118. So now PtyRAD has been successfully installed, and just to validate PtyRAD is running correctly, we can actually open. So this is my code editor. It's just called VS Code. I can put the description in the video, but you can simply just go on to the PtyRAD quick example notebook and make sure you have selected the correct kernel or environment, which is this one that we just created with PtyRAD, and we also just installed it. So now I'm just gonna run this notebook, the first cell and the second cell. So usually it takes around 12 to 15 seconds to just load the 40-cent data set when it's around like 1 gigabyte. And you can see that now PtyRAD has successfully finished the initial check, sent information about the GPU being printed out. It's currently doing the initialization of the diffraction pattern. And the initialization is done. So now we can actually run PtyRAD. And by design, all these demos should be working out of the box as long as you have the Python environment correctly created and PtyRAD correctly installed, and you have downloaded the demo data from our Zenodo record and put them into the correct position. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching the video about how to install PtyRAD. I will see you next time.